The Lost Cryptids Conservatory, where we will shatter your reality to bring you closer to the truth.
All right, guys, welcome back to another live show. We have a special guest today, Gwendolynn of Uncharted Studies. How you doing today, Gwendolynn?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Glad to have you on.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, let's just dive right into it. So, what got you started with these experiences of the paranormal and Sasquatch and other cryptids?
Well, believe it or not, it actually started with ghosts. I was always really interested in pretty much everything in the unknown. It always piqued my interest, but when I had what I call an awakening, it's basically just an eruption of paranormal activity that happens around you, and like gifts awaken and things like that. But that's when everything kind of started for me, and I would call myself a couch researcher of cryptids for quite a long time. I was researching ghosts more than anything. And then it's been about 6, 7 years since I started really delving heavily into field research. So I came from more of like a book knowledge base and then went out into the field. So that was kind of unique. I think I might have done a little backwards, maybe not, but I didn't have my experience until after I started researching cryptids. So
Armchair.
Yes, armchair research. Yeah, I call it couch research, and same thing. Yeah. So I was researching for quite a long time, probably about 5 years before I had my first cryptid experience. Well, well, I'll admittedly call my first cryptid experience. But yeah, so it was a long, patient time of researching out in the field before I got to really see or feel anything weird.
Yeah, it's pretty normal, and it's good actually because you don't want to just dive right into it without some background knowledge in your brain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, 100%. But years and years ago, I had a weird sort of cryptid experience, but I did not openly speak about it for quite a long time, just because of the oddity of it. Um, but I didn't count that one as like my first Bigfoot experience because it wasn't a Bigfoot that I had experience with way back then. And that was my what people call a dogman experience. So I didn't know it was dogman at the time. I just thought it was um, a werewolf. So I didn't want to tell anybody about it.
right, they're ridicule and everything.
Yeah, especially when using that type of terminology, everybody scoffs at
Exactly.
they scoff at it and when you're talking about it in realistic terms, the stuff of the movies. So I didn't talk about it for a long time, except for the people that was here the night that it happened. I would openly talk with them about it because, well, not openly. I left out the part where it was weird and all the places it was weird. But yeah, I would talk to them about it and I would describe it, but I would try not to let them in on just how weird of a creature it was. because they saw the reaction afterwards. I can go into the story. I don't know what order you want to.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, right into it.
So when I first bought this place that I'm at right now, I had actually moved away and came back only recently. But I had moved from like a city type area. So I was enjoying being out and not having any light pollution. I could see the stars a lot better here. So I was standing in the middle of my yard and I was just kind of hanging out and I was watching the stars. And I saw these two little white blobs run across my yard. And I looked down and it's possums. Sitting there. I thought they were chasing each other. I'm like, oh man, I'm not ready to go in. I'm enjoying the stars. So it's like, how can I get away from critters that might get me if I'm looking up and they're down and still get to look at the stars? So what I did was I climbed up on top of a full-size van that I had at the time. And the way that property sits is the driveway runs down from the house. And there's a line of trees on this side of the property that runs down the property. And there's a big yard between them. And I'm laying back with my legs hanging over the edge for a while. And then I just sat up and I started looking around. And I don't even know what made me look down from the stars. I was just started looking around and out like the trees, it was real bright out. So it was either the full moon or close to the full moon. And the only reason I mentioned that is because it was important of how bright it was out at night. And the trees were actually casting a shadow. So when this thing was coming out along the tree line, all I could see was just its bottom, little bit of its legs, and the black against the black. So you can tell like something's moving within the shadow. It's darker than the shadow. So I'm thinking, I'm seeing the outline and it's weird looking. I'm thinking, man, that's a really big deer. And I'm watching this thing walk in the tree line. And as it comes out of the tree line and into the moonlight, it was almost like it was slow motion because you watch it come out and I saw its nose first, and then I saw its muzzle, and then I saw its face. And then as I got to see more and more of this thing that was coming out of the shadow, it was like my heart sank because I knew it wasn't a deer. I didn't even know how to describe it. When I first saw its nose, I thought dog, but then as it went further back its face, it's all of its features got more and more out of proportion and strange looking. And it came out of the shadows and it was like in a haunch position. It was very much walking on almost like this part of its arm, its forearm. And it was rocking its head back and forth. And as it walked across the ground, it was real low and almost crawled, it looked like. And as it got to the middle of the yard, the only thing I could think was just stay as still as I can. I've worked with dogs and animals and all kinds of creatures. I worked animal control for a while. And I just know when you're feel like you're in danger from animal, you just stay still. This thing hadn't looked at me. It didn't acknowledge me or nothing. So I was like, if I stay still, I might be okay. So I've got my hands gripped on the edge of the van. My knees are hanging off the edge, and I'm trying not to breathe even, like no movement whatsoever. And it gets from the tree line over here, and it gets to about the middle of the yard, and then it stops. Doesn't look at me, doesn't do anything. It just lifts its head and almost like it sniffs the air. And it puts its head down, changes position, and comes back towards me. And as it gets up to my feet, I remember it pushing up off the ground and it extending its neck, and then it just lowers back down. I know that there was like time and like for me to like look and get a good look at it. But as time went on, the fear response, that part of my memory has gotten blocked. I don't really remember what it looked like up close anymore or anything like that. But it put its arms down and then it got back into that crawling position and it started back into the exact same position it left. And then it finished its trail across the yard, crossed the road, got into the tree line across the road. And as soon as it did, I jumped off the van, didn't even think about it. I hit the ground. I felt like the lightning come up from my feet from where I hit so hard. And I just ran as fast as I could into the house. And I got in the house and I slammed the door, and I had friends of mine over and my kid's dad over at the time. So I'm like freaking out and I'm trying to tell them what I saw. And I'm like, there was something, dog thing, something that's, I couldn't really speak. It was like all of my ability to function was gone. And my kids that ended up coming out with a pistol, and I like looking for this thing, couldn't find it, and ended up going back in the house. And it took quite a long time for me to even let my kids out of the house at night
I bet.
for
I
a
bet.
long time. Yeah, and then even then, when I started letting them outside of the house at night, I had to make sure it wasn't just me out there with them. I felt more comfortable if it was a group of adults. So it was like torture for quite a long time, for like a good 2.5, almost 3 years, I think, before I let my brain settle from that experience.
Well,
Um,
exactly. I mean, it's traumatic,
yeah, I think it was more traumatic that it was in my own front yard because I couldn't
right?
get away from it, it happened here. And then I just couldn't get away. There's no safe place. This was my safe place. So
Exactly.
it was quite traumatizing. And I did a lot of, like, research on, like, werewolves and stuff, but I never came across the whole dogman thing. I didn't find out about that until way later. And, so I didn't really tell anybody. I thought it was like a humanoid dog mixed with hyena and everything else that I would have described it as. I just said it was like a wolf-like thing. That's all I could say. Um, but me and my kid's dad sat down for a long time, months, trying to come up with like all these different varieties of species of animals, if you could mix them, what they would look like. Cause I was trying to figure out like a species of what I saw. And cause it was just so weird. And it was a weird experience for sure, but it's something that I will never, ever, ever forget. And I don't take dogman experiences lightly. And I think I got away lightly, honestly. Mine wasn't super bad.
Yeah, it's up there though. Having one come that close to you. Um, I've seen one too. Walk, running on two legs. Wasn't all disproportionate and all weird looking like what you had seen, but there's creatures out there in these woods, close to home in our own backyards that we just can't fathom until we experience it, and then it sometimes it's so earth shattering that people never recover.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I hadn't already put myself in so many awkward and dangerous positions with my research already, I don't know if I would have kept my sanity, honestly, because just how deeply it affected me. And I consider myself pretty damn brave. So, um, yeah, it scared me pretty bad. But I think the biggest thing with it being so disproportionate, is the way it was moving. It didn't seem fluid or right for its size and the length of its arms and things like that, like, nothing. The way it moved, I think, made it look more strange. The way it was in a haunch position and almost crawling. It almost looked
Right.
sickly.
Yeah, just weird. I mean, obviously that's what I had seen was very fluid. It was on all fours and looked like a wolf. Nothing was abnormal until it stood up, started running. Maybe there could be what people say here in Michigan is we have more like what I had seen, and like down south, and you get to Rougarou and a bunch of different stuff. It's more bulky and more monster uh, described. I know you was this in Ohio. You said right?
Mhm. Yeah, it happened in Ohio. Yeah,
Yeah, and most
I
people don't expect it to be like in Ohio or anything, but
yeah, and I live in a side of a state park, so there's lots of acreage of woods. So, I mean, if there was gonna be a creature that could sustain life, biologically sustain life, I think it could here. There's tons of places for it to go and hide and hunker down.
what's your feeling on it? Do you think it's a natural creature? Do you think like it's a military engineered project, like some people like to say, or a spirit or something?
Well, the way that I function is I play around with all theories. So I have theories based on theories. So for like the biological flesh and blood aspect, I have theories on that, because there's too many weird things that happen around these creatures that is not really scientifically known, you know? So for an animal to biologically be able to have some of the capabilities as reported with dogmen, they would have to have some sort of capabilities that are completely unheard of that we've never had a chance to study or research. So I ask people who study it in a biological sense to please consider all stories, because there could be something there that they're missing if they're not paying attention. So even if biologically speaking, this thing could have capabilities that we would just haven't been able to study it. I personally think it might be a little bit biological and a little bit, um, I don't want to say otherworldly or innerworldly, I guess. I think that there's some very unique attributes that make it more than just a flesh and blood creature.
Yeah.
I do think that they're on a similar spectrum or plane as a Bigfoot, but I don't think that they intercross. I don't think that they're the same species line at all. I know that some people speculate that, some of them, like they could be cousins to each other. I disagree. I think they're two totally different things.
Right. Or like a baboon faced Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, exactly. It seems to be their own species, their own thing. Obviously, what I seen was no telling about it. It's a wolf. Um, you couldn't confuse it with a Bigfoot at all. But there are reports of more buff, robust werewolf style. Could be mistaken for a Bigfoot, other than it's a dog head, and claws and stuff like that. So it is up to speculation of what's going on. Or is it something evolving flesh and blood? Is it spiritual stuff? Is it genetically engineering stuff? It's hard to say. It all kind of could fit in some of the stories. It seems like some of them fit more than others, especially when you have dogmen that get shot up and don't bleed and are immune to death. It seems like.
Yeah, but then in other cases, you get the ones that aren't
Right.
um, safe from gunshots and wounds and death and things like that.
Exactly.
I think that if I were to settle on any theory, I think that I feel comfortable saying it's a mix of a variety of things. I think that there are dogmen, and I think that there are Bigfoot, but I also think that there are possibly um, entities that are almost hijacking the form. And that's where I think you get some of the weird varieties of looks and such. I think that it could be uh, just a variety of things. I think that there is biological, and I think that there's a more spectral aspect to things that are hijacking that form, because the way entities that are not human function, and when I say that, I mean spectral entities, the way those function is they feed off of energy to sustain and to survive. And when they expend that energy, they need more. That energy comes from emotion. A fear and excitement are two of the strongest emotions. So if an entity is trying to um, function off of energy from humans, they're going to want to incite some sort of emotion that creates a lot of energy. And I think that's part of it.
That could be. I mean, yeah. Take for instance, just take a team out, and all of a sudden you start getting activity. Is it an entity that's causing it? Is drawing energy from you, or is it Sasquatch throwing stuff at you? Is it Sasquatch walking around you, or is it some type of spiritual energy of the forest itself? The forest and the nature itself is very. We still don't know how everything connects and works together. We know that trees can talk to each other through studies and stuff, very beyond anything we ever thought. That makes them almost, like sentient beings, almost. I think there's just so much more to the puzzle pieces that we're not even getting 1% of the full picture when we're actually in the woods.
Yeah, that's true. And when you really sit back and think about it, there's been a lot of cultures over the decades, centuries even, that have believed that nature can speak with each other. Trees can talk to each other. And they've always speculated, well, some of them speculate that this information has traveled through the ground, through the roots, almost like a network. And this has been a theory that's been around for a long time. A lot of people have said it for a long time. However, science is just not proving it.
That's
So
right.
I think the better science gets, the more we're going to find out that all these people that were crazy kooks before were really onto something.
Yeah, exactly. And when you look back at myths and stuff of leprechauns and elves and trolls and ogres and giants and stuff, it does beg the question of what were these creatures? What were these lost cryptids that were once known? Now, we would say monster or Bigfoot or something, but you know, there could be thousands of different entities and creatures out there that we all knew, ancient times knew, but just forgot. And I think that, with modern times, modern society of people, we're not out there, patrolling and doing stuff, making war, or killing any of these things, really. Not like, something attacks the village, we all get the pitchforks and destroy it, right?
Right.
So it seems like there's a lot of things coming back. Do you feel like there's a lot more things coming forth in modern times?
Yes, I do. I think it's erupting more quickly than I even expected it to, honestly. I don't, I think that has so much to do with science. I think it has so much to do with the internet being readily available and us being able to communicate far away distances. But I think the biggest reason why we're seeing more and more of these things occurring is not because they're being reported more, but I think that there is almost like an eruption thing may happen. I think that slowly over time we figure out little bits of pieces of facts about weird things in history. And I think that the next big discovery is probably getting ready to happen. I think that's just because it's just gonna come out. It's
Your
just
mic's acting up a little bit, Gwendolyn. Just a little.
okay.
I think that's you, Chad.
There, that's way, but no, it's not. That's better. Go ahead,
You're a
talk.
little
Okay.
fuzzy.
Yeah, that's way better. I'm
Is that better?
fuzzy because of the. You know I'm fuzzy. My backlights. You know what they are.
Mm.
You sound better now.
All right, thank you. But sorry, I don't remember where I was at. I was on a roll and I forgot.
You were doing great. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. You are a Bigfoot researcher. How'd you get into the Bigfoot stuff? And talk about some of these photos that we're gonna show.
Okay. So I'd always watched not just Bigfoot shows, but also archaeology. That was my dream. That was my passion. That's what I wanted to do. And for a long time, I thought that I had to grow up and finish high school and go to college for archaeology before I could ever study anything that was cryptid related. So that was my drive. That was my goal. But as I got older and I, turned 20 years old, I was like, I'm going to do this myself if I want to. So that's just what I did. I just started going out there and I slowly learned over time and just did a lot of research, a lot of, underhanded learning from people who had been doing it before me and stuff. So yeah, it was a very boring start, honestly. But progressively I became more and more knowledgeable and more passionate. And then I had my Bigfoot experience and then there was no closing that door. I'll never, ever not research Bigfoot, I don't think.
That's awesome. Exactly. I mean, honestly, especially when that door does open and you're very passionate about it, and you finally get some proof to yourself. It's like that door swings wide open.
Yeah.
It's a one-way street.
Yeah, 100%.
So talk about this photo right here. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that photo was found. Okay, this one was found when I was on a hike with my kids. I didn't have anything with me to be able to make a cast. This would have been a great cast print. But I did the best I could getting the photos that I could get. But my kids were running ahead of me. And right when we stopped, my youngest got ready to step forward and he almost stepped in that track. And I stopped him and I pulled him back real fast and I said, look. And he was just so thrilled because he was only like 7 at the time when we found this print. And he was just so thrilled. And he helped me get all the pictures and we did whatever measurements we could using my hand. There's some debris that we took home from it that he got to keep. But it was a totally unintentional find. We were just walking in the woods completely off trail. We were about 2.5 acres off trail in the state park here.
That's awesome. It's a great one. Definitely see the toe outlines easily. I mean, this was just fantastic. What a lucky find for you guys.
Yeah, totally lucky.
Yeah, definitely. You have some pictures of the same one, but I thought this one was the best, especially with your hand to compare it. There's some big toes. There's just no doubt about it.
Yeah. I really hated that I didn't get back there. I actually went back 2 days later thinking that maybe I'd be able to get a cast out of it, and I couldn't even find a spot where it was. Being out with the kids, it wasn't really a good time to be prepping for finding a print like that.
No, it's usually when you find the best stuff too, if you're unprepared.
Yeah, exactly.
So, talk about this picture right here.
That picture, I don't even know. That looks like, so this was a cave that I went into, and there was just a painted handprint. It was huge. I'm not sure who left it or why it was there. We did find some beer bottles and stuff at the entrance of the cave, but we went pretty far back the cave, and that's where we found that, and there was no other debris. So I just thought it was very interesting. So I wanted to kind of throw it in there because it's a very large hand, and if you were to think Bigfoot, that would be about the size.
Yeah, you know what caught my interest is how many digits are on there?
Oh, you know what? There's 6. I didn't even notice that.
6.
Wow.
Interesting thing about that is, a lot of native stories of the 6-fingered giants, and or he gets into the Nephilim and stuff, but 6-fingered giants and stuff of Native American culture. Some cultures, they raise their hand for the how. Then they would check the digits, and if you had too many, you were of that bad a tribe.
Oh wow. Yeah, when I took that
Very
picture,
interesting.
yeah, we didn't even have any lights on. I actually took the picture like 3 different times because I couldn't see to where to put my hand. And I kind of tucked that picture away, and these are some of my older pictures that I pulled out because I've never even showed them to anybody. So this is kind of a first.
This is fantastic. I think it's awesome. And this is in the back of a cave.
Yeah.
How far back deep in this cave?
I'd say we were probably about, it wasn't a super deep cave. We were probably about maybe 3/4 of a mile, almost a half mile. We were a good distance in, yeah. But we weren't to the very, very back of it. We had to stop because it started to tunnel off, and I'm like, we're not going back any further. I don't know how to get out.
So it keeps going farther and farther. Huh?
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. I love stuff like that. It reminds me of another picture that we have from a different member.
Oh, how cool.
And this is out west.
Nice.
Yeah.
And if you're include on, it's my right, include on the right there, it would look like a thumb. It definitely looks like an appendage.
Yeah, it's definitely more than the normal 5 digits and stuff. So
yeah.
That's why I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And that's even better. You guys found this in a cave. Is this cave out in the middle of the woods, or is this without revealing too much of the location?
I'll be honest with you. I'd only visited once, and I was never able to go back. A friend took me to the cave and showed me the cave, and I marked it on my GPS, and I just have never went back. So I have it on my GPS. However, I couldn't even tell you where we were. We were in New York. I know that.
Oh, New York. Well, that's unique.
Yeah, it was a rural part of New York. It wasn't the city.
Well, right, obviously. Yeah. Although if it was in the city down past the subways, I thought that'd be even cooler. But
yeah.
So you kind of think about everything about with Bigfoot. It's kind of flesh and blood, but it could have a spiritual side. What do you feel like? Because some people, obviously, if they're more spiritual side, they can go through portals and stuff. Why do Bigfoot do some of the things they do? Like, just mess with us and steal our food if they could do some of these other things.
Personally, I think a lot of it is curiosity. I think they also like to play with us. I think they like to incite different emotions just because it's fun. I think their thought process is very playful for the most part. I get a good feel off of the areas I go to. There's been a few times where I felt like I might be at risk, but it usually doesn't start like that. It usually starts playful and curious, and then something triggers the creatures, and then they get pissy, and then they get mad, and then that's when they start throwing stuff or trying to get you to leave or trying to corral you out.
Yeah. Let's. I know you got another very interesting story that I kind of want to touch into with another entity, and that is little people.
Yes. Yeah, the little gnome dude.
Yes. Tell us about that and your thoughts on those kind of entities.
Well, I've only ever had a couple what I call experiences with them. The one that was really personal was when it followed me home. And it was when you start off researching, you think that you're looking for these little solid things that are running around. This thing was not solid. It very much seemed very spectral. Because I never could get a good look at it. It was so fast. I guess it could be solid, but it would mostly be shadow because it was always dark formed and you can only ever see the shape of it. But how it all started was I went to an investigation at a really well-known location, and there was like a stump, and there was like little gnome creatures all over this little stump. Little gnome village had like little bench and houses and little mushrooms and little gnome guys. Well, they were all overgrown. They were all falling over. And I didn't even know that they were there at first. But then I walked up and I was like, oh, look at this little gnome village. So I started messing with them. I was setting them up and I was doing different things with them. And I just left it at that. Walked away, went back into the building. The stump was outside in the courtyard of where the building was. And so when I go back in, we finish our investigation. But I notice during the investigation, I start getting these little tugs on like, the thigh part of my pants or my lower shirt, or a hand just come up and like get right in my face. And it was always like the shadowy hand. I'm like, what is with this hand? And at first I thought it was something with the building that I was at, and I'm researching, and then I leave and I go home. I don't do the normal stay here, you can't come with me, unless I feel like there's something negative there that I don't want to come with me. Usually what happens, they do like a rubber band, they follow you home, give it about 2 weeks to a month, they rubber band back where they started from. So it didn't really bother me. I go home, and the very same night, as soon as I get home, all of a sudden stuff starts getting thrown at me. It started out with just little stuff, my stuff getting knocked off my bedside table or off my bathroom sink. And then it got a little more aggressive as the days passed. And it threw a big chunk of like really thick glass. I don't even know where it came from. It had to have been like car window glass because it was real thick. And it came flying at my face, it caught in my hair, and I went like this. It fell out of my hair, hit the floor. I'm like, where is this? So then I turn around to look, and this little gnome thing runs out of my room. And I'm like, okay, what is happening? And it was just like a shadow, but you could even see like the pointed hat and just a very much like gnome looking figure. And so I walk out of my room and I look and I don't see anything. And I walk back, and, another day I'm standing doing laundry, and all of a sudden I can feel it behind me. And I turn around and look, and this little black shadow just shoots out of my laundry room. And I'm like, okay. So I'm standing there doing laundry. I was like, why do you keep running from me? And the next thing I know, I feel this tug. I turn around again. Nothing's there. And it was almost like a shadow. It was just dark shadow that looked like a gnome figure. And so I was talking to him about it. And I was like, this gnome, it's like a gnome, and it keeps messing with only me. Why only me? What is happening? So we're talking through it. And finally I'm like, oh, the gnome village. Because it had been at this point a couple weeks since I had been there. This thing messed with me for 2 weeks. So I'm like, we got to go back. We got to figure out what the deal is here. But normally my investigations, they're not a one-time deal. They're a process. So we already had to go back anyways. So when we go back, I'm like, bright idea. Let's fix up the gnome village. See if we can appease it, make it happy. If that's what this thing came from, this should work. So I go there. I buy some new little gnomes. I put the sand down around the stump to keep the grass from growing. I pull all the grass, weed it all, set all the little gnome things up. I'm like, there, your home is fixed. You stay here. I'm leaving. And I walked out of the courtyard, walked it back into the building, and I made it a point not to go back out to the courtyard for the rest of the night. I stayed in the building. If I went outside, I went up front. We leave, and I give it about a week, and I'm finally like, yeah, that worked. I had not felt it, seen it, had it mess with me or anything from that moment forward. So I feel like the way it happened, it was almost like it was very Fae oriented. The whole gifting thing. It wasn't like I was gifting something it hadn't already had. I was gifting my efforts to clean up its stump. And I think maybe that helped and made it happy and it stayed. But I think I almost like woke something up when I messed with it the first time. So it's just a really weird, unique experience that was kind of cool. And it's something that I'm definitely going to have in some writing I'm going to have coming up soon.
Yeah, it is incredible, honestly, and it begs the question of those old tales of these gnomes, these little people and fairies and things like that. Of if you wrong them, they mess with you, and then if you help them out, they do good things for you and stuff. So it's just
Right.
fascinating to me. And this was in the U.S., obviously not in Europe.
Yep, it was in the U.S. Yeah.
What do you feel is going on with these gnomes? Do they, when you put your own gnome village up, do these creatures or specters or whatever come and move in there? Like, how do you think this process works of them moving into an area occupied by people or set up by a person even?
The way I think about it is, what is the space that these entities live in? Clearly not our realm. I wouldn't think. So where is their space consist of? Is it all the same shared space that we have? Or can they move more freely from place to place to place? Much easier than we can. I think that they're able to move from place to place to place. So while, some of my older research might say that this is a tulpa-like creature, which is a thought form that is able to be created by energy alone, energy that's put out by people, or is it something that has been triggered with this process of whoever started that gnome village putting so much care and thought into everything that they did to set it up? Did that draw the attention of something that was way over here, say in like Ireland or Scotland or wherever, and it zooms over, and now all of a sudden it's got its new home in the United States? So there's two different ways to look at it. Like, how did it get here in the United States? Is it a thought form that is basically just hijacking this idea of a gnome to be able to gain energy, or is it an actual gnome that was pulled just by the whole process of arranging the stump from
Right.
where it came from?
And the Native Americans have their own stories of little people, little tribes of people who have possessed magic and can do different things, and sometimes they're nice and dangerous. Like from Pugwaji, but every single thousands of tribes had thousands of different names for these entities and stuff, and different relations with them, like I said, good or bad. But you said Topa, that's a whole another entity of itself that could play a role in not only that, but like Bigfoot, Dogman, or Ghost, and basically any other paranormal activity, because it's a thought form. Why don't you take us into that? How could one perceive to tell the difference between like a thought form or like a Bigfoot experience or any other type of experience?
Do you mind if I step in for a second?
Go ahead.
Okay, let's jump back to where we went earlier. The only word I basically said tonight, armchair. So, in my opinion, I want to know yours, Gwendolyn. As boring as it can be, is how important is the armchair in researching other people's research and basing your own opinion on what you find? Everything you read isn't going to be what you experience, but before you jump in the fields, the armchair is really important, as right?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I think you should start by researching at home first. I mean, a lot of people go into this because they've had an experience, they want to understand it. But I think that there's a process that's the proper way for it to be taken. You can't have an experience and then just jump out in the field and know what you're getting yourself into. I think armchair research is one of the most beneficial parts of research because even, doctorates and scientists, they bounce ideas off of each other constantly. They learn off of each other constantly. And that's how we progress. And if you're not doing any armchair research, you're not looking into any new theories, any new ideas, any new options, routes, any new ways to approach a situation. You're really just going to stall out and go flat if you're not researching other people's research as well. That's hugely important. I think collaboration is also hugely important once you do get out there in the field to collaborate with other teams and research with other teams. Even do like I do. I get a new team together for every investigation, depending on what we're researching. So I've learned most of what I've learned has been from other people. I'd say probably a good 25% of what I've learned has been out in the field. I've had a lot of great experiences. I've collected a lot of great evidence, but that evidence is really nothing without some sort of knowledge base to back it up. I can hand you a picture and then you're going to ask me, what was the terrain like? What was the weather conditions? Where were you? Were you by yourself? There's tons of things to consider when you're researching. And if you're just going out there with a blank slate, not really knowing what you're doing, you're going to take a picture from back here. You're going to get it back and you say, where's your measurements? Where's your facts? It's going to be, your evidence is going to be null and void. It's going to be useless.
Now, can I continue to be disconcerting, if you don't mind? Because obviously it was mentioned earlier that I'm very disconcerting, which is kind of an insult, but I don't care. I guess I got fans, right?
We all do.
Now, in the field, whether it be ghosts, whether it be Bigfoot, whether it be whatever you're searching for, and your best advice for somebody that does it and to be safe, what would be some of your recommendations?
For people who are going out there alone just to be safe?
Or with a couple people?
I was going to say, if you're going out there alone, you're not safe.
Yes, okay. Or with 3 people, okay.
Yeah. I think it's important to, if you feel like you want to try to, some people say that Bigfoot can smell gunpowder. If you want to try to go out in the field without a gun, take a secondary option that doesn't include gunpowder. You should never be out in the woods, especially if you're a woman or a team of women, without any type of protection at all. I get to work with Nick Valente, and he very heavily preaches the safety of being out in the woods. Take bear spray, take mace, take a machete, take a knife. If you don't want to take a gun, there's tons of other options. You're not really protecting yourself against what I don't think you're protecting yourself against Bigfoot. You're protecting yourself against other large animals and people. There's a lot of crazy people out in the woods. And if anybody spent an extensive amount of time in the woods, I'm sure they've come across other people in the woods. And it can be a little bit uncomfortable situation for me, being a woman, if I'm out there by myself. I don't like to go out by myself. I will, scout an area, but I'm not going to go deep into the woods by myself.
Right, yeah. With something, like you said, there's regular animals, but people.
Yeah.
And these entities that are out there. So you should be proficient in whatever you're armed with, too, not just buy something and you just take out there, never even picked it up and used it, held it properly, regardless if it's a firearm or a knife, machete, or whatever.
That's true.
You can always get hurt and chop a digit off. And
yeah. I mean, definitely use normal safety precautions. And you're right. You should know what you're using. Don't go out there with a tool you've never used before, or never opened, or never tried. And then just start, if it's a machete, just whacking around wherever, if it's a mace, have the thing turn the wrong way and spray yourself. So know what you're working with. You're right.
There's something we didn't talk about yet, though, and I know we'll close out with the conference and all that, but your whole idea you gave us with the speaker sponsor, we tell our listeners about it. Can we get that in for a couple minutes?
Yeah. So you guys are opting to allow people to have the opportunity to do a speaker sponsor. So what that is you pay $150 and you get to sponsor a speaker of your choice. And that speaker sponsor, yep, there it is right there. So that speaker sponsor, or that speaker, is going to know that you sponsored them, because they're going to be made aware. You guys are going to make it to where people can actually see who sponsored who. And with that speaker sponsor, you also get one free ticket. It doesn't mean you have to go. You can give it away to a friend if you don't want to go. I'm sure that there's a lot of people's friends who would love to go. So you do get the free ticket, but then you also get the notoriety if you have a group, or if you have a podcast, or if you have a broadcast, or if you're just individually and you want to let that speaker know that you support them in their work. I mean, you could put your name out there for any reason. I think it's a great opportunity to do a little bit of advertising for, if you do have any type of platform that you want to draw an audience to. And I know that I am excited to have gotten a sponsor, Adam Davies, who's on the far right there. So he's somebody that I wanted to support, because he goes out there, he uses his own time, his own dime, and he wants to give back by going to these conferences and speaking. So I feel like it's our duty as his listeners to give back and to offer something in return. And they do put a lot of time and effort into their research, and I enjoy getting to hear about it at the conferences. So I think it's a great way to not only get your name out there, but also support a speaker that you really enjoy.
That's right. We got speakers here that really don't do conferences. Adam Davies does not do conferences at all.
No.
You'd be hard pressed to find the last conference he went to. So you will be missing out if you miss him.
He told me flat out when I asked him, and I've been friends with him for a long time and never pestered him, but just talked to him every now and then for years. He said, Chad, conferences aren't good for me. And then he said, I've never been to Michigan. I said, well, here's the good thing, Adam. We're going out after. So I've got Adam. We've got Adam for a week after the conference. And so we've been getting our exercise in, because we know we're going to need it. Because
we got a bunch of speakers going to this after party event. Basically, this week-long expedition in the woods, and Gwendolynn is actually coming along for that.
I am. I'm so excited. What an honor.
Well, you were so nice to me, Gwendolynn. I was like, man, I have to. Especially when you approached me about the speaker sponsor. And
well, what he really didn't tell you is you're actually bait. So
what's funny is I actually am always the first one to be like, you guys need bait? I'm right here.
No, I have this theory. No. It's you have to be the old sheep. You fall behind the group. If you go out with a group of 3.
Yeah, we did talk about.
One person has to fall like 100, 200 yards behind. And then that person's the one that's hearing what's following them. And what's following them is catching on to you. And it can be intense. Now, can we say when this happens, it's Bigfoot? No, it could be a deer. It could be a coyote. But it's very interesting, and it can be intimidating.
I'm excited.
The equipment we've been accumulating, we've got some really good stuff. We've got like really good FLIRs. All of our members that are going to be going we have thermal imagers, FLIRs, lots of them, digital audios. Nice. Robert Kreider's bringing some stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's going to be epic. I'm excited.
And
I will say though, if you're using night vision, you're going to give yourself away, because even dogs can see that. Animals can see that.
I agree, because I busted one. I busted one, and I only got to see it for like a brief second, and it was busted clear as day, and it took off. So yes, but it didn't know. I just happened to be able to get lucky and pointed at it. It didn't know it was on until I pointed it at it.
Yeah.
I had it for a second right on it. So,
Yeah, and they don't like it. It bothers them. I mean, I've tested on multiple different animals. I even have a pig. I was like, how's she going to react? They try to get away from it. They don't want to look at it.
but you take a laser pointer and they all chase it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we moved on. We've got the ambient light night visions now, the Psionics. So it does not produce IR light. You can have IR light to it, but it takes the ambient light and works in color without it. So
those are so much better.
And thermal, obviously, Flares is the brand we use. Does not throw any IR light at all. So we're actually moving away from IR lights, and
good. Yeah,
we got some good stuff. It's going to be pretty awesome in pretty rugged areas to a wild country, actually. So it's going to be bears, it's going to be wolves, big cats, pigs,
good with all that.
potentially.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely Sasquatch, Dogman, and all that. We have some great areas. Actually,
Dogman can stay over there until I'm ready for Dogman to show up.
Well, you know, Michigan has a lot of Dogman reporting, so just know that.
We do.
Yeah, well, I've
never seen one. I've never seen one, but they have been seen. Partner of mine's seen one, so I don't want to see one.
Yeah. My perspective on it is they could be a Native American shamanistic type of stuff, they say skinwalkers, but there's a good side of things like that, or its own species of wolves. But it's intelligent and stuff. I would say if you see a wolf out there and it's not bothering you, I wouldn't shoot it.
No.
Because it might stand up and rip your head off. Who knows?
That's true too. I was just thinking about not hurting the wolf, but yeah, there's that too.
And what is interesting is we did wipe the wolf population of this country and of Europe. Decimated all these wolf populations, and now these wolves are coming back, and we're getting more reports of these upright canines. So I wonder if that has anything to do with the equation.
Yeah.
It's when they kill the livestock, that's what happened. Like they were killing
obviously
livestock, and they maybe attacked a couple children, and then
you have the stories of the werewolves. You have these vilified stories that made people just destroy wolves. But let's get back to the other topic, which is this thought form entity. How would you tell people to be able to discern the difference between this entity and a Bigfoot or any other paranormal experience?
From my experience, from my research, and this is something that I would say, I don't like to use the word expert, but I definitely would think I would specialize in this because I delved a lot of time and research into thought forms. And a good example, I think, would be the story of Dolos, who was like a minor god to Loki. And he created like a tulpa. And what he did was he carved a statue to make it look like Loki. And so when Loki found him and caught him, because what he was trying to do is he was trying to get away with something he shouldn't be doing. When Loki caught him and found him, he was not mad. He was more impressed. So he said, I want you to be my understudy. So he understudied with Loki. So he had that same trickster-esque type of persona. But the reason why Loki was able to tell that it was a fake, well, first off, it was a copy of Loki, but was the fact that his feet, he didn't get to finish the feet before he got caught. So from that moment on, whenever he would create a thought form, it wouldn't be quite right. Something would be off with it. And a lot of times it would be the feet or the face and eyes. So I think that that's a good cue into paying attention to the things that play into the experience and the entity itself. If you're noticing that you're usually dealing with very calm Bigfoot in an area and all of a sudden you're dealing with an angry Bigfoot that's throwing things. It's a different type of behavior. That would be a clue that maybe something is a little off about this particular Bigfoot. Or say that you were researching, I don't know, let's say Mothman, and all the stories about Mothman, but all of a sudden you have this experience of Mothman. It's a very kind, gentle creature. Well, that's not really like Mothman. So I think that when you're researching something, it's good to do your couch research first or your armchair research first, because then you know what to expect when you get out there. And then if you're having situations that don't quite fit the bill, then maybe you should start looking outside of that specific cryptid and more into a thought form or some sort of energy that's hijacked that form.
There's the importance of, for location too, the armchair, you learn areas that are where to go, because we use this all the time. Don't you, when you go out, don't you like look into areas where things have happened and go to those areas?
I don't research an area heavily unless I've done a lot of research at home first. That comes first. You have to know what you're getting into with the area, the people, the terrain, all of that before you even step foot in there, if you're going to do a real good, thorough job of researching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to be serious at this. You don't want to just do it willy-nilly. You can get yourself hurt. People go missing all the time. People want to get in these situations, they get into these situations, and they're not really prepared. And sometimes they don't make it back. We have heard of even Bigfooters actually going missing and never returning. And sometimes these things are just swept under the rug.
Yeah, and I think that in some of those instances, I think that we are looking at situations where a form was hijacked by another entity. It's so out of normal character for these creatures. I'm not saying they can't have a bad egg here and there, but some of these attacks just seem so out of character for a Bigfoot.
Or so even impossible for a Bigfoot. Some of them are right in cities, right in cities and bars and stuff. You have people missing, waters connected. I believe that Bigfoot does kidnap people, but there's so many more entities out there that I would have to assume that they all attack people, make people go missing, and definitely the more bizarre ways, it's something more abnormal than a Sasquatch or Dogman even, or a lake monster and stuff like that. Especially when you get down into caves and karst and possibly hollow earth type of landscapes, you never know what's down there, prehistoric, or you can talk about the spiritual realm, a lot of connection to the spiritual realms and going into the earth and stuff. So who knows?
Yeah.
Well, what's your feeling on cave systems and going underground and things of that nature?
I think that's where a lot of Bigfoot tend to reside, is underground or in cave systems. And you hear people talking about the smell that Bigfoot puts off. You'll find that smell, that rotten, nasty smell, on creatures that tend to live a lot of their life in the ground. They've never really seen any sun. They don't get any wind through their hair. Their hair gets stagnant and stinky. And I think that's why some of these creatures have that smell. I think it depends on their location, what's available to them. And if it's cave systems or they dig holes underground and that's what's available to them, that's where they live. And I think that's where you get the smell.
Yeah, the sulfur smell and being in those volcanic pockets and stuff. And you're right, of no airflow, it being dusty and dirty, of course.
The musty smell, I've gotten that so many times. Like, you ever forget a load of laundry in the washing machine for 3 days? Open it, it's like that's part of that smell. It's not always what when I'm feeling around. That's not, but sometimes it is. Sometimes you smell like urine, like ammonia.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Sometimes I smell flowers and there's no
Have
flowers.
you ever encountered
everywhere.
any smells while being in the woods?
If they are, they're usually pretty subtle, like the old laundry scent. I've caught that a couple times. I've never experienced the potent smell that people describe, though. I've never experienced that. So I can't explain what that smell smells like. But based on what I've determined, that would make the most sense of why there would be a smell to only some Bigfoots, but not to others. Is some of them are living underground because if that's what they have available, some of them don't have to.
Yeah, and from our experiences, they're in water a lot or in mud. They just lay in the mud, cover up in mud, helps with the bugs and keeping cool, and of course. But we find that they really don't care wherever they're at. If it's muddy, icky, doesn't matter. They're in there, and um, well, a lot of people just don't expect them to be where they're at, and I believe that that's their mindset that they can just sneak up right up there and they'll lay up in the swamp right next to your house,
Yeah.
and they could be there for years and you're never gonna expect it, and they just watch you grow up.
Yeah.
Watch your kids grow up, and then finally
A lot
decide
of
to knock on the window or something.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about them living outside their house. But I just want to throw a curiosity out there that I have only recently pondered. A lot of people describe the smell, that my theory is the caves and undergrounds. But then a lot of people talk about how they don't care what type of terrain that they step into, if it's muddy, if it's wet, if it's damp, if it's dry, if it's cold. But yet, there's not very many people that describe when they see a Bigfoot matted hair or hair that has become so matted that, like a long-haired dog, it would just become one big mat. So I find that very curious. Now, the only explanation I could think of is if they're intelligent, they're working their knots out one way or the other. But if they're just biological, they're not going to sit there and work a comb through their hair.
What if they're family groups and like primates, and which humans are related to primates? What if they groom each other?
That's true. However, even if you're grooming, some of the length of hair on these Bigfoots are much longer than any chimpanzee, ape, or gorilla. That their hair doesn't grow that long. Some of them I've seen described hanging down like
9
a
to
foot and a half
11
off their
inches.
arms.
The longest hair I've found was 9 to 11 inches. I found some 11. They're basically between 9 and 11 inches.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
way long enough to get matted. So I feel like that
But
really,
where I found them was in an area like in Florida, where you would think their hair would be thinner in Florida, like
Mhm.
naturally.
yeah,
But
that's cool.
northern areas, I could see where they could get matted, where it's really cold.
But
That
nobody
is a good
describes it.
point. It's a great point. It's I think maybe some slightly, but not like you were saying. They would just get matted and matted and matted, and
Yeah.
you'd have these knots all over the body. They must wash themselves or do something enough to take care of them that would prevent that.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
that people describe them almost dreaded out, but never like mats. And I find that very curious, and I think that really creates a problem for some of the biological believers, to be able to function and be that intelligent to know that they have to basically brush their hair.
But what about the multiple reports, Gwendolyn, of horsehair braided, manes braided?
That falls into it too.
So I mean, does it mean they're intelligent enough to where they can manicure themselves? Just a hypothesis.
I'm not saying that a biological creature couldn't be intelligent enough to brush its own hair to braid a horse's mane, but where are they getting this knowledge of braiding from? Where are they learning to
Right.
do this? They don't braid their own hair, right? So
Not that we know of. I know some people say that
MK
Patty
Davis
Patty
swears
has a
there's a
braid.
braid in
oh,
Patty.
I've never heard anybody say.
I don't really see it, but he swears it's there. So
If they're more of a native tribe or hominid with intelligence enough to have their own like culture or stuff, they will start developing, doing stuff like that. You know, hair. We've developed hairstyles. You know, we developed putting jewelry in our hair and stuff. So, grooming and taking care of yourself and bathing is something that puts you above animals, obviously.
Yeah,
And
I would think so.
yeah, who knows? We don't know anything. I mean, to observe a family group doing something would just is beyond. I mean, it's already been 50 plus years since Patty, so
Yeah,
we
and most
basically
of the
don't
stuff
really
that
know
we
anymore.
no, I mean, we don't know anything. It's all theory. We're all only playing around with theory. It really bothers me when somebody's like, "This is the way it is," and I'm like, "Well, you don't know that." So
Exactly.
yeah,
Nobody knows. That's our theory. We don't know.
yeah.
It's all what we experience.
Yeah, basically, it's whatever theories we have experienced and formed. Basically, that's how every other Bigfoot researcher and group is. It's their own theories and their own experiences and what they learn and what they perceive and want to perceive. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very, very unique subject. And
It's
so,
something.
tell us about your your Uncharted studies. Uncharted Studies.
So Uncharted Studies is a group. It's just a 2-member group. It's me and a friend of mine, Tiana, and we have a semi-active third member. But what I do is I usually go out with a team of usually 5, 6, sometimes even 7. I try not to go out any more than that because then it takes away from the experience. But so I build a team around every investigation. So Uncharted is basically just a name. It's a place where I can put any evidence videos I want to share. Um, I don't often work under the name Uncharted. Often I work under my own name. However, if people want to really delve into some of the pictures and videos of my research, the ones that I have shared, I've shared on that page. So it's a great place to kind of see like where I'm at in my research sometimes. I took a little bit of a hiatus for about 6 months. So I'm just now getting the page active again. Going to be heading into a website soon, hopefully. I just want a nice general place for everybody to come and see the research that I've conducted. So Uncharted Studies is a good place to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully, when we go out up north and all that, we're gonna get some great evidence.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Oh yeah, I am too. With everyone and all the equipment and all the spots that we have planned, it's gonna be epic. It's gonna be pretty hard not to get something, honestly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're gonna get some interesting stuff. Hopefully some stuff that we can really say with a little bit of certainty could be a Bigfoot. But we might get some, heat blips on the FLIR stuff we can't explain. But I'm definitely stoked. I definitely think that we're gonna get some stuff and we're gonna have some lot of footage to go over for sure.
Oh man, that's the sometimes that's the so dreading part.
It
So much stuff to
is.
go through.
It is, but it's like it's the thrill of when you're like, "Oh, what was that?" And then you go back and you see what it was, and you're like it's holy grail. So
Yes, well, like this last weekend, a little bit had a lot of activity and was just hoping, hopefully he caught this on audio. Hopefully he caught this, and like, yes, 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 we caught this, and fantastic experience, fantastic evidence. So definitely
yeah.
be presenting that in some videos and on a live show here soon, along with
Yeah.
our stories.
I'll be listening for
But
that one.
yeah, even then, even if you have stuff happening, the equipment, we were using thermals and stuff, very, very expensive thermals, and it even still seems like they just know where to hide just beyond the capabilities of what you got, seemingly,
Yeah.
even without any beams of light showing.
Yeah.
But we encountered some very intelligent, awesome Bigfoot this
Oh
last
man,
outing. So
that's exciting. You guys are lucky.
I'm not going to say they were Bigfoot. We encountered something that probably wasn't human, but they actually made them mad. Sherry and I made them mad.
You sound like me bouncing around it because you don't want to call it Bigfoot.
We weren't
Well-
doing that. I just cranked my radio up full blast. Sherry and I were jamming, waiting for them to get back. And I'm like, I was like, and I was already exhausted from the day before because we walked 11 point some miles up and down huge river valleys, not little hills. I mean, like, we did some climbing.
Yeah.
And going down hills and up hills. And
you guys found a good spot, I'm sure then. Wow.
Yes. It's on the list of many spots we got with activity. Bigfoot are everywhere. Even it doesn't matter what state you are. It seems they are just everywhere, and it could be like I said, this modern age of people not doing what they used to do, even 100, 200 years ago, being outside all the time, doing everything outside, sleeping differently, doing stuff at night. So these populations probably grown and adapted to us. It's ridiculous how easy it is. People shut up, go to bed, turn the TV on at 10 o'clock, and it's an open world out there that they just traverse and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
There's very little resistance.
It isn't like any other state either. It's different. A lot of states that have a high sightings and some don't have high. Michigan's different. I mean, it's got a lot of water, a lot of creeks, a lot of rivers, a lot of power lines, tons. And it's got such dense areas. It's got areas that are just almost impenetrable. Nice. So we're fortunate here. In Ohio, areas like that too. And
Ohio's gotten pretty active.
Yes. And they probably connect. Those cave systems probably connect from Michigan to Ohio.
Yes. And Kentucky.
Yep.
And Kentucky, yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes, Mammoth Cave System.
Yep.
Exactly. There's theories that they could be like ants. There could be numerous, like thousands, millions of them down in the earth, and you have them just sprouting out, and that's what we see them on.
Yeah.
We just honestly don't know, but there are stories of.
We live inside. We've become oblivious to nature.
We are.
Quit scaring the children. Don't tell them there's millions of giant Bigfoots crawling under the earth.
That's just one theory.
That's part of the fun of being a mom. What are you talking about? Or being a dad?
Sometimes it's good to scare those kids. You don't want them out there messing with Bigfoot.
Well, they won't leave the yard. Now they won't leave the house.
My kids know the story of Thunderbirds. That's how I would get them to stay inside at night.
There you go.
The Thunderbirds.
So yeah, that's another fascinating topic that hasn't got a lot of a shine on it in recent years, in my opinion.
The hype has really died down on it. I did very minimal research on it because it never stuck with me. It just kind of faded.
It's one of those that I think a lot of people don't take seriously.
Yeah.
Compared to Bigfoot or sea serpents and even Dogman or Goatman.
Right.
Isn't there more Thunderbird sightings and Bigfoot sightings in certain areas? It's
no, they're so very rare.
No, you don't ever hear about them anymore. You hear about people describe something as a big bird, but they don't say Thunderbird anymore.
No, we have like pterodactyls and pterosaurs that are more reported. Like some people say, it's a Thunderbird, or maybe that's what they're describing, but
maybe. I mean, that could be all same thing, It could all be one entity, and the term Thunderbird has just kind of died away.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely believe that there's at least once was these entities out there, and we do have flying dinosaurs. Even dinosaurs reported, like in Chile, the desert, and in the Congo. Actually, there's new evidence of dinosaurs in the Arctic that they're finding that actually lived in these colder weather environments. So it's very fascinating.
Oh, man, that opens up a whole other chapter. I'm not even going to open up because I got a whole other theory on that too, but we're going to leave it at we're not going to even. It's a whole other story.
We all need to go to a
Are you sure? I mean, you're more welcome to.
Yeah, no, Antarctica, and find one of those openings and climb in it.
The story of Admiral Byrd.
Some, rappelling gear and go down in some of them. Find out.
Sure it's that easy.
Yeah.
There's stuff going on in Antarctica.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you can't even get into some places of Antarctica.
We're not
They won't
allowed.
allow it.
You can't
It
at
used
all.
to be a tourist. You could go tourism there. Now it's all shut.
No, you have to have like very strict clearance to be able to even get in there. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on weird there. But if you wanted me to just a little touch
Give us a little
on the whole
spoiler.
dinosaur thing, it brings the question of some of these theories that I have. It brings the question of why do we not see ghosts of dinosaurs and cavemen and pterodactyls and things like that? Or are these Mothmen or Thunderbird or pterodactyl-like creatures that people are describing actually spirits of dinosaurs? So
Manifestations, exactly.
Yeah.
Possible. You can't be ruled out because, in my belief, manifestations are real. Things can manifestate.
Oh yeah.
This is totally possible. Yes.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry.
hard to say, honestly. Well, people, like I said, sometimes you hear these weird stories of people going through these portals or different time zones, and all of a sudden they're back with, dinosaurs or somewhere else. And
Yeah.
we do have like a watch that's out of place in history. There's a couple screws.
Oh,
There's
yes.
a couple different
That's a fun
odd
one.
modern technology that's spread out through the time eras that definitely don't belong there.
Yeah. Yeah, the watch is the big one for me. That's the one that I find like so fascinating. But and then, then there's even like whole civilizations that seem out of time, like Gobekli Tepe. Gobekli Tepe is way out of time. This is way pre estimated human existence that they found these monuments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Gwendolyn, that tapestry behind you, will you zoom in so everybody can see it once?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I can zoom in.
No, Blake will have to do it. Make her have the full screen real quick so you can see it. There's a question I have about it. Yes.
Like Vanna White.
Yeah, let me figure it out for a second. But yeah, it's some of that geometric pattern.
No,
Yeah.
it's also like timelines and stuff, right? It's like a calendar. Can you adjust your thing so people can see?
Yeah. So if you can see it, the whole thing
Yep,
there.
that's way better. Yes.
So these are all your astrological signs. And then you have like your elemental signs where water, air, earth, and fire. And then you have your moon. And then you have your seeing eye. And then you have your different phases of your moon. It's basically a collect all tapestry of a lot of different aspects, but it's mostly astrological. The reason I got it is because it looks very much like a sigil that I was given in one of my most intense visions ever. It looks similar, but it's not quite the same. So that's why I bought it.
I like it. I
you.
think it's one of the best backgrounds of any show I've ever seen.
Ah, thank you.
And it happens to be on our show, Blake. Look at that.
Yeah.
So, you got a type of vision and stuff. What did you, if you want to go into it, what was what happened, and what do you think the meaning of it was? And
So there was a building that I volunteered for. I frequented it often. It was a haunted location. My volunteer time was spent trying to fix the location up. I don't just research. I'm very into the historical part of the research as well. So when I learned I could volunteer at this place, that was like my big goal. I just wanted to help out this place and save the history of it. So I spent a lot of time there. And the place has like claws. It gets these claws in you, and it almost puppets you. There's a very strong entity there that if you don't take a break from that place every now and again, it can really consume you. And it was towards the end of where I'm like, okay, I'm going to need a break soon. This place is starting to really get to me. I'd start having dizzy spells all the time and everything whenever I was there. So we had just gotten done doing like a little mini investigation with several of the volunteers. And I started feeling real dizzy, and I'm like, man, I don't feel right. I don't feel right. Something weird's going to happen. And I took this overwhelming feeling of just like my whole body was just tingling. And I started getting tunnel vision. And I'm like, I got to go in. I got to get to my area where I'm going to sit down. So I go in, and I get a little bit in the door, and I'm thinking, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to fall over right here. Well, here comes someone around the corner, another volunteer. And they were like, are you okay? I said, yeah, I just need to take a break. So I keep going, and I go walk around the corner, and they say, you're not okay. I'm going to go get somebody. So I'm like, oh God, I don't want this to be made a big spectacle of. I just want to go sit down. Something's going to happen. I got to go sit down and take a break. So I can hear them come back in. I'm like, just dip out. Just dip out. Nobody's going to see you. So I like tucked under this. I like sat down. I was like, okay, just breathe through this, because I felt like I was going to lose it. And I was really embarrassed. I didn't want anybody to see, whatever was going to happen. I just knew I wasn't quite myself. Well, when I sat down, I hit a fire extinguisher. So it let everybody know where I was. So then they come find me. And I had stood up, and I was like, I'm going to go in this room. I don't feel well. Something weird's happening. So as soon as I get in that room, I went down. And it's so hard to explain. I thought that my eyes were closed, but that I could still see everybody because my vision went black. So I'm like, okay, my eyes are closed. But I could still see everybody, but everybody was made up of these little light particles. And the people were made up of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And with these light particles, the different shades of them, you could see definition in their face. You could see what they looked like. So I could really kind of tell who was who for the most part. But then, like the door frame, it had the little light dots, but they were green instead of blue, and they were more sparse. They weren't kind of all close together like the living people were. And like the walls, they had a little bit of light particles, but there was shades of black. You could see like this shade of black was closer to me. This shade of black was further from me. So I could see the definition of the room, but everything was black. And so I'm thinking my eyes are closed. And then all of a sudden I'd be there, and then I'd be in this black world. And there was a guy, and he was wearing a red glowing shirt. He had on like the old like French style wigs that judges still wear sometimes. And I think it's where do they wear those? Oh, help me out here. Okay, anyways, people know what I'm talking about. The judges, the white wigs. So it would look like a black wig. No, I don't remember.
The white powdered wigs.
Yeah, powdered wigs. Thank you. Yeah.
But there was George Washington.
Exactly. Yes. And it was short like George Washington's. It wasn't one of the longer ones, but it was black, and it had a real big like floof on the ends. And he had his back to me, and he was drawing what looked a little bit like this, and it was bright blue. It was like he was drawing blue light almost. And he was drawing the inside with this hand and drawing the lines with this hand. And he was drawing little sigils on the outside of the wheel. I called it a wheel with the other hand. So he was only blocking out like a bottom portion of it, but I could see it for the most part. And he was using both hands. And the only thing I could think was he was like a stabilizer or like a scribe. He recorded stuff and he kept things stable. And then I had this other little guy over here on my right shoulder, and he's like a gray or black collar, and his arms were flailing around. He was just complaining about everybody. And then I had this big one behind me that I could just feel. He was a big, massive energy, and he was very calm. The one in front of me didn't really talk to or address me at all. The one behind me talked directly to me, and the one over here did nothing but freak out and like flail around his arms around and complain. They were all talking to me at once. It was like I could process everything that they were telling me all at the same time. And then the guy that was drawing the sigil, he was telling me where people were at in the building. Not me, but them. But I was overhearing it. And I was able to actually see them at the same time I was processing what they were saying. At the same time, I could see the people on the out. It's so much happening at once. It was the weirdest experience I've ever experienced. Strongest vision I've ever had. Well, a lot of research later, I think I tracked down the entity that's in front of me to Metatron, or an archangel. His sigil looks very much like this. And he is a scribe. He used to be Enoch. Enoch is Metatron. And I'm not sure about the other two. I never did figure them out. But they were almost like support. Like he was like the big boss, and then this guy over here does nothing but complain. But this guy is the one who kind of made everything stable and secure. When I came to, that's what I'll call it. When I started kind of being able to, I didn't even want to leave the scenario. I wasn't ready, but it started to fade away. And they were like freaking out. And they said that my eyes were not closed. My eyes were open the whole time. And that they had a blue glaze over them. And they said they were scared. They thought that I was dying. Like they weren't sure what was happening. And then when I talked to the people who were in the building, but not when this incident was occurring, I said, you remember, I said, you know what happened to me? Where were you when that was happening? And it seemed like it coincided. Everybody was where they should have been based on my vision. I said, were you downstairs in the entranceway? Yes. Were you down Shadow Hallway? Yes. So like just knowing that they confirmed and I put it out there first because I'm like, I don't want anybody to be able to say that I didn't know what I was talking about. I said, were you here? Were you here? Were you here? And everybody seemed to coincide with what I saw. It was really intense. And still this day, I don't know the purpose of it, but I definitely think I was supposed to do the research. And I don't think my research is done.
Wow, that's pretty amazing stuff.
Hey, Blake, you know me pretty well, right?
Yeah, what's up?
Do I claim to actually know, or do I always suggest as theory and possibility in what we find? Because apparently, I've got a fan. Got a fan in the chat, Wow, guess I'm doing good.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you start talking. You get fans.
Yeah, I guess I bring up theory, and I bring up things that I find that seem logical to what I find, and I hope I never declare that they're fact, because I don't think I ever have. But okay, but thanks for asking. So sorry to interrupt you guys, but got a fan.
I think he also said you're just being a little crybaby too. So
yeah, he said that. I said, yeah, that was way up there. So
I'm sure he'll call you again, but
I know. At least,
guys,
wait. At least he'll be watching the next show, right?
Yes, he would.
All right.
Any questions in the chat for Gwendolyn? Please put them in all caps so we can see them. We'll start taking some questions. Yeah, so you kind of experienced a little bit of everything. Any UFO stories?
Yeah, I do actually have.
Oh, yeah. Trifecta of stuff.
I do actually have some UFO stories. They're old. I haven't experienced a UFO for quite some time. Never any close encounters that I will admittedly talk about. I don't think so. But I definitely have seen some strange stuff in the sky. The last thing I saw, I was 23, so it's been a while. But it was a big glowing orange globe in the sky. And it was around Halloween because I thought it was a pumpkin. I was like, looked like it was hovering above a church down the road that I could see from my house. And I'm looking, I'm like, they don't usually decorate for Halloween. I'm like, that's kind of cool. I wanted the kids to see it the next day. So I'm sitting there watching it. I'm like, wait, what is happening? So as I'm looking at it, it's getting smaller. And at first I'm thinking it's just in my head. And then I'm like, no, that's really happening. I'm thinking I should go grab my phone. Now, at this point in time, the cell phone cameras were just crap. So I don't even know if it could have caught it anyways. But I didn't, because I was like, the moment I know how it works for me, the moment I leave, I'm going to miss whatever happens and how it leaves. So I'm not leaving. I watched it the whole time until it just shrank from this giant glowing orange ball down to nothing, till there was nothing left. Well, I told my kid's dad about it, and he said, I told him about it that night. I was calling him, freaking out. I'm like, you're not going to believe it. I just saw it. I was freaking out. I was telling him. And he goes, wow, that's wild. Well, he worked nights at the time. So when he got home, he pokes me waking up. He wakes me up, poking me. He goes, so you know that thing you saw? And I was like, yeah. He goes, I was listening to a radio show, and I guess there was like 5 reports of that last night. And I'm like, what? So that was kind of cool because I didn't even know about it. He listens to talk radio while he's working. So that was kind of weird that he had ever heard that on the world news.
It confirms what you've seen a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty wild.
Yeah, you never know what UFOs are. Could be a dozen different answers. But the government is putting it out there that they do exist slowly and surely. So disclosure time.
Very slow.
Bigfoot, maybe that's soon too.
I don't know. I think they're covering something bigger up.
Yeah, they definitely do the things they want to do and have reasons. And I think a lot of the times it is to keep the public from panicking, worrying, and freaking out about all the stuff that happens.
Yep. Yeah. Or
let me say something really controversial, really quick.
Yeah.
Alien ant farm, and where are the ants?
Yeah, that's actually a theory that I love. I watch all kinds of like universe shows and ancient mystery shows just because I like to learn about the universe, because there's so much that could support that theory, where you just learn it just by watching just your average space documentary. So
right.
Did the dinosaurs really die, or did the aliens come here and nuke them so that they could plant us here?
Yeah, and was Mars its first start, and they screwed it up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, always,
Well, how? Because I mean, look at all the uranium in the Earth. I mean, it technically could have came from being destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Earth is, I believe, 2 different
there.
planets that's smashed into each other and formed one planet. Is I think the theory that they're going with now. So,
well, I mean, if you really look at the earthquake patterns, there's a definite split. It seems like where you get a lot of activity. So if the world was 2 that became 1, that would make sense why you're seeing a definitive line in earthquake patterns.
But however, if there is a Earth under the Earth, a smaller Earth under the Earth, and there's the hollow Earth area theory, even with the magma in the middle and another Earth, that would cause for that, along with the poles from the lunar poles and stuff that move the Earth around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are actually in the process of reversal at the moment. The north-south axis. Yeah. Our magnetosphere is switching up.
Yeah, it's moving. They move every year and stuff, but they're fluctuating a lot more. And could that be cause of a lot of stuff?
Yeah, and mineral deposits on the layers. They've seen where there's layers where there's a very quick adjustment in the north-south axis, and you can see where the magnetic minerals inside of these rocks have adjusted relatively quickly in a layer of mineral deposits.
To the magnetic polar shifts that imagine like 1 million years ago, I bet, or 10 million, let's go 100 million years ago, Antarctica wasn't probably a frozen tundra. It was probably like
pristine jungle, I believe.
Yeah, a jungle, yes. And eventually in several million years, who knows what the climate's going to be. People want to call it global warming. It's not global warming. It's
just a changing of the way our Earth works.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on that for sure. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but Larry Admiral Byrd, who flew to both poles, said that and flew into them. Of course, the more famous one of when he flew up north, there was some type of terrestrial civilization that met him and stuff like that. But he said there's a zone up there where it turns into all greenery. And, I believe there was reports of like mammoths and stuff that shouldn't be living was still living up there.
Yep. Yeah, it's okay. I know this story of this guy. Is he the same one that also said that our whole Earth was surrounded by a glacial ice form? No, that's a different one, right? That's a different guy.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, he's the guy that said that he flew his plane and the aliens pulled him into the hole.
He also
I remember
was leading
that
Operation
one.
High Jump in the Antarctic.
But I get those two
warship
guys
was
mixed
attacked.
up because there's another guy that says that we live within Antarctica. Our Antarctica isn't one place; it's actually surrounding us, and that's why we're not allowed to go
Right,
there.
like if you look at it, it's the entire bottom side of the Earth, but it would actually encompass the whole Earth of this big ice wall.
Yeah,
is what they say.
Let's say this, for example, because we don't know.
And beyond that could be more lands and more hollowed earth. I mean,
right.
a bunch of stuff.
Who is to say that our whole solar system that we know isn't encased in a gigantic planet? Now, am I saying it is? No. But with some theories and Earth and Big Bang theories and star theories, who's to say that we're just not in a hollow planet floating around? I mean, I'm just trying to get weird.
Well, okay. I have some scenarios that would help support that theory. So there's a YouTube video that's floating around for a long time where the guy shoots the rocket up into the sky. The rocket's going at a very straight and narrow path. And then all of a sudden it hits this point where it just does a really quick turn, almost like it's scraping the top of something. And that's when it starts its descent. And then there's also news. Now, I'm not sure how trustworthy this news that's being released where that the government is just basically shooting nukes off into the sky. And the theory is that they're trying to break through our, what is it? What's the layer? The stratosphere, but there's a name for the layer that blocks our planet in. I can't remember the name of it.
Not the old one, because that's easy to break. What's the others?
In the 60s and stuff, they shot a bunch of nukes up there and tried to. Well, they didn't know what was going to happen. One theory was the atmosphere was going to catch on fire. Luckily, that didn't happen. But they did actually blow up and set nukes up into outer space for whatever reason.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know they did that, but like the theory is that they're trying to break through that crust that holds our planet. And it's just a theory. It's a fun theory because there's factual, like there really are setting off a bunch of rockets and shooting them in the sky for who knows what reason. But it could just be a bunk theory. Who knows?
Oh, exactly. In all the pictures that you have from space of the Earth is actual renditions. It's not a picture. You never have a real picture of it. You haven't had one for decades now. It's all hand-drawn rendition or computer-generated imagery. And you can find that in every artwork. It's all labeled.
Yeah. And not only that, when you do see these pictures, the pictures that you see, the Earth is very round, almost perfect. And yet scientists will tell you the Earth isn't actually round. It's more oblong shape. But in these pictures, it's really perfectly round.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a rock floating in space. It's not going to be perfectly round. It's going to have edges and smacked around a little bit. So to have that picture perfect presentation is.
Or it's an alien spacecraft made to look like a planet flying its orbit. I'm just saying we gotta. Hey, we might as well be interesting. Because
I think that could be fun. I think that could be a movie.
Imagination is the most important thing in everything we do. Because without imagination, you don't have the ability to think and to decipher differences between things. Okay,
That's so true.
and to think these things, are they right? Probably not. But guess what? You're thinking, you're using your brain, you're using your imagination, and it's only making your brain stronger.
Yep, exactly. It makes you think.
Yes, and using your imagination is definitely growing your brain, and people don't do that as much as they used to anymore. So,
Exactly.
and that's what the community needs to happen and stuff. And that's what we're kind of doing with the conference is
Yes.
bringing
I love it.
bringing the woo side,
Imagination.
paranormal side.
Just call it the way it is. We're bringing imaginations, a lot of them, different imaginations.
I'm
No, that's
thrilled.
not
I'm
true.
so
It's just
excited.
different experiences people are having. People do experience the more paranormal side of Bigfoot. People flat out don't believe it. Well, we have experienced some certain oddities in the woods in areas of Bigfoot. Now, are they related? We don't know, but it happens in the same spot. So we should definitely have a discussion about it, communicate our ideas, maybe come up and evolve our own theories on this subject. So that's why we're having this kind of woo room discussion talk presentation on top of the more scientific aspect side. So it's gonna be a fun event, July 17th at the Wyndham Hotel in Ann Arbor, Michigan, from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's a lot of time to have fun one-on-one time with all the speakers, us. Have some great food. There's actually a restaurant in the hotel and its own bar. So once you get over on the dinner side of things, it's going to get pretty fun. And got a few things up our sleeves. We're actually going to have our own Bigfoot in the house. Bilbo the Bigfoot is going to be running around the conference. We actually have a whole room dedicated to, I would say, top 5 biggest track cast collection in the U.S. By our great buddy Ernest Fargo. This is only surpassed by Dr. Jeff Meldrum and Cliff Brackman himself. But Ernest has accumulated a huge, massive collection.
Over 60.
Yeah, that he's collected from Jeff and Cliff. Everything that's been made available and a few that have not been made available. So awesome. He's full of knowledge too. Just full of Bigfoot knowledge and history and fantastic guy. So that whole room setup is going to be awesome. We have some good food, catering. It's going to be fun. Definitely going to be fun with all the amazing speakers we got going on, one-on-one, plus all the vendors. Oh, man, it's going to be huge. It's going to be fun. With the COVID restrictions being lifted every single week, it seems like. Capacity is through the roof, so there's no problem there. It's going to be awesome. Everything's just going the right way. So we want to make sure you guys are there. So head over to MichiganBigfootConference.com. You can find all the information there, tickets, vendor information, merchandise that we sell, t-shirts, stuff like that. Speaker sponsor stuff, all through there. Contact us and, tell us you're going. It's going to be fun. Anything else you want to talk about, Chad, right there?
Well, the vendor lineup we have, and I'm not giving it out, you're going to have to come to see, is just as impressive as the speaker lineup. And the reason I can say that is because we have awesome vendors, and almost all the speakers are going to also vend. So you'll have an ability to go to their table, look at their books, talk to them. But if you do a speaker sponsor, like Gwendolynn was talking about, you will get a pass to be able to be one-on-one in the executive boardroom around the round table with all these people. And so speaker sponsor if you want that. If not, you only get a few minutes with them at their vendor table because everybody else is going to want to talk to them at their vendor table. You won't be able to take their whole day up. Now, if you want to go talk to Ken for an hour, there's going to be 100 people that want to talk to Ken for an hour. So you'll have to you'll get a couple minutes and have to move along.
There definitely going to be more than enough time having from 9 to 11. So definitely more than enough time to get your talking with everyone and talk to us, man. We're definitely going to be rolling around doing our thing. Some lucky people will actually be able to go out. I will personally take some people out. But that's not something that everyone can be participating in. It will be chosen based on several aspects. That is to super top secret. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be an awesome event.
Well,
yeah.
we're gonna do all.
Dog's going to be there.
Ernie, he is auctioning off one of the rarest books there is. First edition, 50 Years of Bigfoot is going to be auctioned.
That's right.
So,
yes, he actually is a collector of books. Very old books, very nice and in great condition books that are sought after and are collectible. So he actually is very knowledgeable in that, and we'll have some for sale, actually, too. So if you're a collector on books and stuff that actually will go up in value each and every year, definitely talk to him. He definitely has some great one-of-a-kind books that you won't find pretty much anywhere else.
I have to correct myself. It's not Janice Carter. It's Mary Green. I'm sorry, everybody. It's terrible.
Yes.
It's Mary Green, the author. It's the story of Janice Carter, 50 Years with Bigfoot, the very first edition. Go find it. Good luck. But it's going to be auctioned off.
Yeah, we got a few other great things. And some fun games to play, actually, too, once we settle down and have fun. So, yeah, I can't wait for that. And plus, Gwendolyn's going to be there. She'll be rolling around. So,
I'll be around. And I love to get pictures. And people have to get a picture with me because I don't remember to get pictures.
Yes, pictures are definitely welcomed. We definitely want to make memories, share memories, and talk about reports, anything like that is a big thing. So have any encounters ready to be talked about. Definitely want to hear them.
Yeah, love them.
Rooms are discounted too, people. So if you're planning to go in and start, otherwise you're going to be at the motel next door and they're not discounted. 72 a night plus tax. Do not go to the corporate office. You have to directly contact the Wyndham Garden on Jackson Road. And
the one in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Ann Arbor. You have to get directly to them because they'll try to make a reservation for you there, and they don't through corporate, and they don't know what it's talking about. So,
yeah. So if you talk to people who don't know what you're trying to ask for, you've called the wrong number. But the hotel does know what's going on. They are fully happy and ready for this event. They're really excited about it. So we have huge venue, and it looks amazing. It looks like a place where Bigfoot might chill if he was at a hotel.
You walk in, it's like you're walking through a woods of real trees they have growing inside. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's a great, huge place, and we're very humbled and happy that we're putting this on for everyone because it's for you guys. You're putting it on for everyone who's hopefully able to come and everyone who's going to be able to watch these amazing speakers talk about the information they do. So, well, Gwendolyn, is there anything else you want to plug and you want to talk about or throw out there?
No, I just really wanted to say, thank you to you. I am now a big fan of yours, but Chad, I am a very big fan of yours, and I appreciate you letting me play even just a small part and giving some ideas towards the convention. And I wanted to thank you both for having me on. And I'm really excited for the event. I have to tell you, this is the one. This is the one I'm looking forward to this year, all year. This is it.
Yeah,
you can tag along with whatever person you want. You get to go. You can be like, and I already know. I see all the people that are going. And I'm not going to say all the names. They all like all your comments because now that we're friends, I see your comments. It's like all three of these people that are going to be out there that are like noted. So you'll have your pick.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I wanted to say something else as well. I can't leave out. A great podcast that I get to help co-host periodically is Project Archivist. You can find them on most major podcast platforms. I think they really are mostly on Podbean. That's where they stream from, but they're on other ones like Castbox and things like that as well. It's a really cool show. It's a wide variety show. They don't stick with anything. Sometimes they have fun shows. Sometimes it's more serious. So if you get a chance, check that one out. It's fun. And I get to help co-host every now and again.
Yeah, we don't really like to brag, but we definitely have probably the best lineup of this year.
Probably
you don't want to miss. We have people
probably in a decade.
You just cannot find at conferences. So again, you don't want to miss these one-on-one time with these amazing people.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks again for tuning in to this wonderful show. We'll be back on again tomorrow with the She Squatchers, 10:05 p.m. So stay tuned for that show.
So we got Jen and Jenna tomorrow then?
Yes. Newsflash for Chad. Everyone else, thanks for showing up, and we'll see you guys later.